Hey everybody, welcome to James Quest, and last night we got to see episode 3 of The Acolytes, and this was the episode that, if you've seen online, there was all kinds of rumors and little tiny leaks from people who actually got to see the first 4 episodes at the premiere. Some of those people, well, very specific people, were saying, this is the one that's gonna ruin Star Wars for a lot of people. Star Wars is gonna be over after this, you know? Very dramatic stuff, right? And of course, if you haven't been online, The Acolyte has already garnered this audience that is basically fueled to hate this show. Like, they decided that they hated this show months and months, if not a year, before it even came out. Based on, I don't know, they don't like the things that the people being interviewed for the show are saying. They don't like they think that there's all kinds of ideologies being pushed in this show, and they don't like that, and so, of course, you have a large audience of people who, they already decided that they hate this, and so they're walking into every single episode looking for the things to hate. So when they hear a rumor that episode 3 specifically is going to be the thing that destroys Star Wars, they're like getting really excited about this. They go into this episode looking for that thing. I gotta say, I had also heard these reports. I had also heard like what was supposed to happen. What actually ends up happening in this show is not nearly as dramatic as those rumors made it out to be. They were like, oh, this is lore breaking stuff. This is gonna, this is gonna ruin the birth of Anakin, and it's gonna ruin the way that the Force works and all that. And I was like, oh, actually, in the context of the episode, it doesn't do any of that stuff. But okay. But of course, if you go on Twitter right now, and on YouTube, of course, you have those same people who were already angry being angry. So it's no surprise, really, but I will say they're definitely acting out a lot more than they usually are. Usually they're like at like a level 7 of anger, and they've ramped it all the way up to 11. They're like, I don't know what they want to accomplish. They just want to express how angry they are, and it's kind of, I don't even know. Maybe they feel like they're in like a group. If they're all angry together, maybe they feel comforted by that. I don't know. But in any case, I definitely got to say, there's nothing in this episode that made me angry, especially because when you actually like look at the context of what was happening, it all makes sense. Like, in anyone who's saying that they they ruined the lore, they don't understand how Star Wars works, they totally messed up the way the Force works, they messed up Anakin's birth. If you're actually being honest with yourself and you watch this episode and that's your takeaway, then I just feel bad for you. I don't know. There's some kind of weird media comprehension thing going on where you're not really getting what they're saying if you actually watch this. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the episode. Okay, so basically this is the entire flashback episode. We're here on Brendok, and we have the twins, and they are, as we all kind of assumed or suspected based on the trailers, they are members of this coven of witches, right? And suspiciously, they are the only children in this coven, and it becomes pretty apparent really quickly. Now, here's the thing. We are being shown this episode pretty specifically from Osha's point of view. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that unfolds that we're only seeing because Osha was in that scene. And so a lot of stuff happens off screen very suspiciously, and we're definitely going to get into that, to where we're like, huh, that's interesting. We didn't see a lot of this other stuff happen. We're just kind of shown the aftermath of it because that's when Osha showed up. So basically what happens is that the twin sisters are going to go through this ascension rite where they turn into full-fledged witches of this coven. And the Jedi are visiting, right? Because they had probably heard rumors that there's Force-sensitive children here. And so they go in to investigate. Now, there's a lot of debate about this, about what the Jedi actually do. It's kind of been a bit of a meme for a long time that the Jedi straight up steal children, which they don't steal children. But, within Republic space, it is their right to go to younglings that they suspect could be Force sensitive, and they do the test to see if they could join the Jedi, and it is ultimately up to the parents whether that's okay or not, right? Now, we have an interesting situation here because this coven of witches is essentially they were exiled from somewhere. They don't specify where, but they were pushed out of wherever they were before, and they're exiled. They're in hiding, and this whole planet was supposed to be uninhabited, right? So the Jedi show up, and they're like, "That's weird. We got rumors of Jedi children, and we saw them, right? So we know they exist." So what's going on here, right? And they don't like let us finish this sentence, but Master Indara was like, Republic Code, we hear you're teaching children, and that's kind of against the law. Now, we also have to talk about this. What actually is the specific laws regarding the teachings of the Force in Republic space? Because this is something that never fully gets explained in any of the movies, but from my understanding at least, it's essentially that like the Jedi have the right to teach younglings the ways of the Force, right? Because they're going to teach them the light side. And anyone who's practicing in the dark side is essentially committing an illegal act. You are not allowed to practice the dark side in Republic space. The Jedi will come after you because the dark side is evil, guys. Like, that's generally how it works. So now we kind of enter this weird, murky area where if the Jedi suspect that this coven of witches is teaching dark side practices, which the witches say, by the way, the witches even say, like, some would consider our power dark, so like, yeah, they're considered dark side users. So the Jedi come up and they're kind of concerned, like, are you teaching younglings the dark side? Which, if you look at it, if you take a step back, it's like, I think they are. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. The witches are probably manifesting some portion of the dark side, probably to give birth to these witches, to these twins, by the way. And we'll get into that also. But that's essentially what's happening. The Jedi show up, they want to train the twins. Osha wants to become a Jedi. The sister does not want to become a Jedi. She wants to remain a witch. And that causes this big fight where we see that May is already kind of crazy because she locks Osha in a room and starts a fire outside. Like, I won't let you leave. I'll kill you, right? Like, okay, damn, May, all right. So we can see she's already not stable. We already kind of have a good twin, evil twin dynamic going on here from the offset. Which, again, the witches are probably using dark side magic, and that's probably sort of what caused this. And so we basically just run into this situation where, like, from this point on, when the fire is started, Osha is in her room. The fire, she's trying to escape, and she hears a bunch of commotion. A bunch of witches are screaming, and when she manages to escape, a lot of the witches are already dead, off screen, and we don't entirely know what happened. Now, she, as like a 9-year-old, assumes that the fire killed them. Maybe it was the smoke, maybe it was actual flames, who knows? But they're all already dead, they're already on the ground, there's a fire everywhere. And we see that Soul shows up, tries to save both the twins, and May ends up falling down this shaft. She ends up falling, and Soul is only able to save Osha, and they leave in a real big hurry, right? And she sees everyone's dead, and so they get on the ship, and Soul basically just has to tell her, like, look, there's no one there left on your planet. There's nothing to go back to. Come be a Jedi, right? Now, this is where we get into the part where it's like, okay, how much information is Soul leaving out? How much did he actually know? How much did he actually see? Because clearly some stuff happened off screen. And I highly suspect we're going to get some of this, mainly because if you've seen the teasers and trailers, there's a sequence where Cal Naka is fighting a young Torben, right? We've seen that in some of the teasers, and obviously that didn't happen in this episode, so we're going to come back to this night. At some point, it looks like Torben is going to get possessed again, which happened momentarily, and Cal Naka's going to have to take care of him, and that's how he gets all his scratches, because that didn't happen this episode. So I'm like, alright, we know for sure we're coming back to this, and that's pretty cool. So that's the first thing. A lot of people are mad because they're like, well, how did all the witches die? How's it even possible? I'm like, we're gonna come back, guys. Are you not picking up the context clues here that we only saw some of this off screen? Like, are you not getting this? Anyways, so the other thing, let's talk about the forced birth here, right? The miracle that they're talking about. Okay, so all we really get is that one of the witches carried the twins, and the other witch created the twins. And then the one witch goes, Yeah, but don't you think the Jedi are going to start asking questions as to how you created them? Which definitely implies she used some kind of dark side magic to create them, right? Now, some people are saying, like, this ruins Anakin's birth. Here's the thing about Anakin's birth, okay? And this is kind of like why I don't entirely agree with the interpretation that Plagueis manipulated the Force and that caused Anakin to be born. Because I think Anakin was supposed to be born completely of the midichlorians as destiny itself creating Anakin, right? Like the universe, the Force, like, created him of its own accord. Like nothing else was involved there. Not Plagueis, not Sidious. It was just the Force, right? At least that's the way that I prefer it to be, right? And if that's the case, then this is not the same as Anakin's birth, right? This was some witches messing with some crazy dark side magic that the Jedi would be probably like arrest everyone here for doing, because that's like, okay, this is all evil dark side stuff. We gotta arrest you. And that's probably what happened. So obviously, we're going to find out more about this because we know that there's going to be a big fight between Kelnaka and Torben. We're going to come back to this night. We're going to see whatever else happened that actually ended up killing everyone. It might not be next episode, but it'll probably be a future episode. And as far as like the whole threads of fate and stuff like that, if you actually listen to the language at which they explain their version of the Force, the way that they think about it, it actually is very similar to, like, she even uses the term, like, it binds people together. I'm like, okay, yeah, just like how it binds the universe together. So, like, it's the same thing. They're explaining the Force in a different way, but with the same idea. It's the same thing. The only difference between the way that these witches think about the Force and the Jedi think about the Force is that the Jedi believe that they need to follow the will of the Force, right? They need to, like, try to understand the way that the Force is willing things to happen in the universe and keep balance, right? Whereas these witches believe that they can pull on the threads of destiny. They think that they can, that by making their own choices, they can change the outcomes of destiny. There's not like an outlaid plan. Basically, they don't think that there's necessarily a will of the Force that has a plan already, right? And that's just an ideological difference between the two. They're two different groups of Force users, right? Obviously, so I don't know why everyone's so they changed the way the Force works. Like, guys, two different groups of people are thinking about the Force differently. In fact, we've seen this many times in Star Wars. There's even I think in the Clone Wars, there's even some weird Gungan Force user guys that it's a whole different religious sect. Anyways, my point is, this episode did not ruin Star Wars or change the way the Force works or ruin Anakin's birth. I think if you truly believe any of that stuff, you're being very silly. You're a very silly person, and I can't take you seriously. So, I don't know. That's where I'm at on that. Other than that, yeah, this episode really just set up more mystery. It answered, like, very little questions. Like, it gave us stuff we essentially already knew if you've been paying attention to the trailers. And I just have even more questions now. And I'm really excited to get those answers. But I will say, the weekly release, I think, is getting people really antsy, especially for a mystery like this. And then on top of that, you put your usual crowd of clowns who have been angry since day one. And then you just have a bunch of other people who, don't get me wrong, there's people out there with legitimate criticisms who are just not vibing with the show, or they don't care about the plot, or maybe they're just, like I said, probably misunderstanding a lot of what's even being said in the show. And look, if you're not vibing with it, that's okay. You're allowed to not vibe with it. It doesn't make you anything. No one's calling you any names. You're allowed to just not like the show. However, if you're someone who's like, it's woke, it's this, it's lesbians, rah, like if you're that kind of person, then yeah, that does make you a thing, right? Like that's exactly like the definition of it. So obviously there's a difference between the type of criticism and the type of ways that people are responding to this show. You can be like a normal person and say, I'm just not really that excited about it. It's not grabbing me. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Okay? But again, if you're like, woke, woke, then you're being stupid. That's what you're being. Anyways, I'm really enjoying the show. I understand what they're doing here. Some of it is predictable, obviously, because we have the trailers, and I'm putting pieces together from the trailers, right? I don't know. To me, this still feels a lot like Star Wars, and I know that everyone's really, really angry right now. Some people are like, Star Wars is over. The brand is gone. Should we reboot the franchise? I'm like, you guys just need to calm down. Look, here's the truth. This show is going to end, and then another show will begin, and then that show will end, and then we'll get a movie eventually, and then that movie will be over, and then another show will happen, and then that show will end. We're just going to keep going. Okay, not every single one of these shows has to be like a make or break for Star Wars. The truth is, if some people just have not enjoyed the last like 8 projects that they've put out, if you've been angry for that long, maybe you should consider taking a break. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you don't need to check out every Star Wars project, especially if it's obvious to everyone, including yourself, that you're just gonna get really angry. Maybe just walk away. Just leave. Anyways, that's my piece of advice. Let me know what you guys think about episode 3. Are you a really silly person, or do you kind of understand what's happening here? And maybe it just doesn't vibe with you. That's okay. But I don't know. Don't be silly. Don't be a silly person. You know who they are. You know what we're talking about here. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.